Chris, thank you. And that is it from the BBC News at 6. The news continues here on BBC One as it's time to join our teams across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Goodbye.
Thanks, Sophie. Coming up on BBC London tonight.
We're on the River Thames. We have a special report looking at the impact of the amount of plastic that's now in our river.
We hear how the River Thames has the worst microplastic pollution levels in the world. Wet wipes are the biggest culprits. Also ahead this evening, the family of a man who died after being tasered by the Met on Chelsea Bridge are launching legal action against the police watchdog investigating his death. Plus,
it's the longest platform on the Elizabeth line, 253 metres long, I'm told.
we take a look inside the newest station on the Elizabeth line ahead of its opening next week. And
hi, I'm Joe Wicks at a school in Guildford, Surrey as part of the BBC Share Your Stories tour, and I'm here to share my story, my childhood, my journey and my career to hopefully inspire the next generation of kids.
good evening and welcome to the programme. I'm Victoria Hollins. First tonight, it's visible throughout the capital, the plastic pollution clogging up our waterways. And now it's thought the River Thames has the worst microplastic pollution levels in the world. These tiny particles are formed when plastic breaks down and then enters the ecosystem. On the foreshore, the most common items are wet wipes, often flushed down toilets. But food wrappers, bottles and even cotton buds are all found regularly. Now, a charity wants stricter legislation around plastics to try and solve the problem. Our environment correspondent Tom Edwards has this special report.
The River Thames in Fulham. When the tide goes out, it reveals a dirty secret. This is where tons and tons of plastic gets dumped by the river. And why here? Why does it end up here?
So because the river has obviously a bend in it here, it's depositing. So as the slow movement of the river acts on the inside bend, it deposits down onto the foreshore here.
Large bits like this also break down into tiny fragments called microplastics. Researchers say the Thames has the most of any river in the world.
One of the concerns is obviously the fish are swimming along, they're then, absorbing these microplastics, and other animals are eating products that have microplastics in them, and then the public population are eating the fish, eating meat that has microplastics, and it's now getting into our bloodstream as well.
In Elizabethan times, salmon abounded here.
In 1957, the Thames was declared biologically dead. Since then, it has recovered. 125 fish species have been recorded in its waters. Now, though, the issue is plastic. It's low tide here at the moment at Fulham, and the amount of plastic here is absolutely shocking, actually. There's everything here from cable ties to sunglasses to razors. 200 tonnes of plastic is pulled out of the Thames every year. 80% of it is single use.
So this is a female mitten crab. You can tell by the broad abdomen on the underside.
This crab was caught next to Hammersmith Bridge. At the Royal Holloway University, they've been studying crabs from the Thames for 10 years.
The vast majority of the fibres we find are often quite clear plastic fibres. Some of those almost certainly would have come from the breakdown of wet wipes.
This one had tiny fibres of plastic inside, which the crab had eaten. And previously, this is what other experiments found: tangles of fibres inside crabs.
Cutting off plastic at source, where it's getting into the environment, is far more effective than trying to clean it up once it's in the environment. You can clean up the bigger stuff, but microplastics, it's virtually impossible to get them out of the environment once they're there. So it's much more effective to try and cut off that plastic getting into the environment in the first place. So a big part of that is trying to encourage people to change their behaviour.
Charities think tougher legislation is also needed.
We'd like to see the government introducing a ban on plastics in wet wipes, and obviously we could do more to eliminate single-use plastics. Manufacturers need to be careful with their packaging and their wording. Also they could use products that aren't required of single-use plastics, things that can be recycled.
The Thames is meant to be London's jewel. At the moment, it's a dumping ground for plastic. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Well, our reporter Guy Lynn joins me now with more on the plastic pollution in our waterways. Guy.
Victoria, thank you very much indeed. Well, microplastics are plastic fragments or particles that are less than 5 millimetres, so absolutely tiny. And plastic that's dumped in the river breaks down, and that makes its way into the food chain when fish and other water creatures eat it. Of course, we all know that plastic is absolutely everywhere, but it's still shocking that this level of it is ending up in our waterways such as the Thames. Now, the charity Thames 21, who we heard from in Tom's report, estimates that they pull out 200 tonnes a year of plastics annually. Now, to give you a bit of a sense of that, it's the equivalent to the weight of the Statue of Liberty coming out of the Thames each year. Now, we went to the government to ask them what they're doing about all of this, and they said, last year we launched a call for evidence on tackling commonly littered single-use plastics such as wet wipes, as well as sachets, cigarette filters and single-use cups. We are considering various options for wet wipes, including a ban on those containing plastics. Now, there are concerns about this for humans, but the full impact on human health is unknown, and there are calls for far more research to be done on all of this. Victoria.
Guy, thank you very much. The family of a man who died after being tasered by 2 Metropolitan Police officers on Chelsea Bridge are launching legal action today. Oladeji Omishaw died in June this year. His relatives say they're taking the action against the police watchdog for failing to criminally investigate the officers involved. The IOPC says it is investigating. And just a warning, you may find some of the images in Greg Mackenzie's report distressing.
Happy birthday to you.
41-year-old Oladeji Omishaw, known to his friends and family as Deji, seen here celebrating his birthday. The son, brother and uncle was in the prime of his life. He died shortly after being tasered multiple times in June. A passerby filmed the incident. Shortly after these scenes on Chelsea Bridge, Deji ended up in the River Thames. The family wanted us to show this footage. The Metropolitan Police claimed they'd been called out to reports of a man armed with a screwdriver. But in these images, there is no screwdriver. It later emerged Deji, who was having a mental health crisis, had actually been holding a lighter.
Each time we think of the people, the 2 Met police officers that did this to our beloved son, is still allowed to be continue with their normal day job as though they haven't done anything wrong.
Today, the family is beginning legal action against the Independent Office for Police Conduct. They are challenging the IOPC's decision not to hold a criminal investigation into his death, which they believe was unlawful and irrational.
I strongly feel that, police officers cannot continue to conduct themselves without impunity. And the IOPC, the Met Commissioner, they have a responsibility to restore our trust and the public's trust.
In a statement, the IOPC said its thoughts and sympathies remain with the family and friends of Oladeji Omishaw, but says at this stage it has no indication that any of the officers involved may have breached police professional standards or committed a criminal offence. Greg Mackenzie, BBC London.
OK, let's take a look now at some of the day's other news. And the RMT union has voted this evening to hold more strikes in the ongoing dispute over pay, job security and conditions. Rail workers will walk out on 3 days during the first week of November, and there'll be a strike across the rail, tube and overground network on the 3rd of November. Two protesters who'd suspended themselves from the QE2 bridge blocking the crossing have been removed by police and arrested. The group behind the action, Just Stop Oil, had been protesting against the government's decision to issue new oil and gas licences. And the King and Queen Consort visited a youth centre in Walthamstow today to hear about Project Zero, which tries to reduce antisocial behaviour. At the end of the visit, Charles and Camilla watched a performance from the musical Hairspray. Now, in a week's time, the last station on the Elizabeth line will open at Bond Street, following a series of delays. It means passengers will no longer have to change at Paddington to travel across the line. Well, our correspondent Carl Mercer is there for us this evening. Carl.
I am indeed, and I'm living the commuter dream, Victoria. Here I am, I've got the station all to myself in the middle of rush hour. Even better news, don't have to pay to get through the ticket barriers. But it's going to be a different story, as you say, from next Monday. They're expecting tens of thousands of passengers to come through the station, something like 140,000 a day is what they're predicting. And it's come at pretty much the best time for all the shops around this area. Christmas lights starting to go up, and Christmas, we know, one of the busiest periods of the year for businesses around here who've had what's been a very tough time. So the station will open, as Crossrail promised, this autumn. Although that was a revised date, we know, don't we, that it is several years behind schedule. But today, really a day for celebration. And when there's something to celebrate, when there's good news, you get quite a few high-profile individuals turning up, as we saw earlier.
Today, the trains are trundling through, but within a week they'll be stopping here at Bond Street, the final piece in its central London puzzle, finally ready to open. Today, a sneak preview for the Mayor, being given a tour of this £660 million station by Transport for London's boss.
Oh, it's so exciting. I mean, genuinely, I said the word wow when I walked into the station today. I've seen the transformation over the last couple of years in particular, and it's come at just the right time. We're approaching the golden quarter. The shops around here could really benefit with a boost. This is the boost they need.
Bond Street has been troubled since 2014. By the spring of 2020, Bond Street Station is 18 months behind schedule.
It hasn't been an easy journey though. This documentary followed Crossrail's growing pains. Chief among them was Bond Street. The problems here adding to the whole line being over budget and years late. But now it's done, and it's impressive, at least without any passengers in it. This is the second longest escalator on the underground network.
It includes the longest platform on the Elizabeth line, 253 metres long, I'm told.
It's expected 140,000 passengers will use it every day.
I am the Crossrail delivery director.
You must be quite pleased then. You're nearly delivered now, aren't you?
Yeah, ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. It's amazing. You know, the last station, and we left the best till last, I'd say.
At the start of November, Crossrail passengers will get another boost, being able to travel from east and west through central London without changing trains. By next May, the whole line will be fully open.
I'm delighted with how the line's running, and the acid test is do customers like it? Well, they're flocking to the Elizabeth line. We've had already something like 200 to 250,000 riders a day through the central section. We're £20 million ahead on revenue, so that's good for the TfL bottom line.
That won't worry him too much after next week. He's stepping down. The money worries will be left with the man beside him on the escalator. Carl Mercer, BBC London.
Now, a London teenager has scooped the Young Hero title at this year's National Lottery Awards for her project that runs workshops teaching disadvantaged young women skills to improve their confidence and opportunities. 15-year-old Avi from southwest London started coding aged 7 when she attended a computing club, but she noticed that most of the attendees at these digital workshops were boys, so she founded Girls Into Coding, working with girls aged 10 to 14. I'm very pleased to say that she joins me in the studio. Thank you so much for coming in today. Just so I know exactly what we're talking about here, coding, it's making something do something else. It's not just about robots, which is what I think a lot of people think about, right?
Yeah, so coding is essentially getting something to move on your screen, but what I like to do is something called physical computing, which is combining something that you've coded with something that you've made to really bring it to life, yeah.
What was it? Lots of young children go to lots of different clubs and then never go and do it again. What was it about coding specifically that made you think, yeah, there's really something in this for me?
I think the thought of being able to create something, then bring it to life is what really sparked my interest. And I thought, because there are so many cool things, so many ideas that I've had in my head, and I was like, oh my God, code can really bring all these ideas to life, and it would be so cool to actually see it in front of me, moving or doing whatever I wanted it to do, and there's so many possibilities, so yeah.
And I know that this sort of thing is sort of starting to be taught in schools a little bit more, but it's not something that a lot of people will still find very accessible, and that's something that's pretty close to your heart, isn't it? How do you go about helping make it more accessible to younger people?
So firstly, my events are all free to attend, so it doesn't kind of put a barrier on a specific group of people who can come. So it's free to attend for all girls, which I think is really important to make sure.
Rebalancing it a little bit is really important. Do you think that's starting to happen a little bit now?
Yeah, I think it's really important to get more girls into the kind of tech space, because we want equal numbers of both boys and girls, and I want to kind of play my part in being able to bridge that gender gap in STEM and technology.
I mean, you've been doing this for what, sort of 7-8 years now. Have you started to notice that things are getting better in terms of female representation?
Definitely. I think those numbers are slowly coming up, and especially at my events, I've definitely seen lots of the girls coming back to an event and wanting to explore more, wanting to ask more questions, and in general becoming more confident, which is really great to see, and I feel like I've definitely had an impact there.
And you've had some really great support from your family, I know, haven't you? And you're trying to reach people who maybe don't necessarily have that. Have you found that you've got to the stage now where you may be actually starting to try and teach them a thing or two?
Yeah, definitely. I like to kind of use my knowledge to help as many people as possible, even if it is family, but yeah, definitely, yes.
So finally, what does the award mean to you?
So winning the National Lottery's Young Hero of the Year award means a great deal to me. I feel so honoured and humbled to be recognised for all the work I'm doing in trying to get as many girls as possible engaged in hands-on tech opportunities. And yeah, I'm really grateful, and I'm going to continue to do all the things I'm doing.
Okay, well, we wish you all the luck for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, still to come this evening.
Find out how this country house in Essex is linked to the BBC and its 100th anniversary, and how you can come along to see it.
And despite the rather chilly start first thing this morning, today the temperatures got up into the high teens Celsius. Will it stay warm? I'll have the full forecast.
Well, as you may have heard, the BBC is celebrating its 100th anniversary today. As part of the centenary celebrations, there have been a number of special visits to schools around the country to help pupils achieve their career goals and inspire them to realise their potential. Today, the fitness coach, Jo Wicks, has been to see students in Guildford, and we went along as well.
He's become the nation's favourite PE teacher, making his name in lockdown with his daily online workouts.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day number 1 of my PE with Jo.
Millions joined in with his burpees and squats, and now he's sharing his message about healthy living and his personal story of overcoming trauma with these Year 11s in Guildford.
But fitness, yeah, I just loved it, and I thought, I want to be a PE teacher. I want to go around and inspire young children to also love exercise. For me, it's just that if I get the opportunity to either talk on a podcast or a TV show, you know, I want to be on TV and on media platforms sharing my actual true mission and purpose. It's not just for the sake of it. You're not going to see me on Strictly Come Dancing like in a leotard, but I really love sharing my story. And so when I got invited to the school today, I thought, you know what, even if there's 100 kids in there and only one person hears my story and listens to it, then it's worth it, because you know, I think there's kids that are probably sitting out there with difficult upbringings, difficult family life, and you know, I've proved that you can choose a different path, you can go on to do amazing things.
And some of those amazing things include publishing 11 books and getting an MBE. But this isn't just a story about success, it's about overcoming difficulty.
It was really cool to see his entire journey and hear about his struggles that he went through, especially with the early part of his career.
Especially being Year 11, we have a lot of pressure at the moment, so to hear how other people have coped with pressure and struggles and seeing how they got through it, and like for him using exercise, it sort of gives us like tips and ideas on how we can sort of help ourselves to get through like this time.
I did have a tough upbringing, I did have a difficult childhood. My mum and dad had severe mental health issues, and I've come through that. And I think people often see the social media facade and think, oh, he's always had this life and this is what it's like. But I think, you know, it's nice to share the honest realities of what life can be like, because sometimes you feel like you're on your own with these things, but you know, addiction is common, you know, depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, these things are really common in families across the UK. So I try and share my story to hopefully let someone else know you're not alone and you can get through it, and there's always a better day.
Joe Wicks there. Well, to coincide with the BBC's birthday, an interactive map has been created, highlighting the people, places and buildings that have defined the BBC's history. Well, our reporter Alison Earle is in Essex tonight at one of the locations. Alison, tell us where you are.
Well, it doesn't get much grander than this. Welcome to Ingatestone Hall, a Tudor manor in Essex that is fit for a queen. As we're told, Elizabeth I spent several nights here. Well, it also has quite a history with the BBC, as several well-known productions have been filmed here. More on that in a bit. But there are lots of locations across the southeast that have a link to the BBC in its 100 years of broadcasting. Nikki Ford has been finding out more about them.
The BBC, it's one of the world's most famous names in broadcasting and of course one of the world's biggest. And today it's celebrating a very special anniversary. 100 years ago, today it was created. Well, to celebrate the occasion, Historic England have drawn up a map with some of the landmarks in London that have been part of the BBC's journey. Which brings us to Camberwell and the home of Una Marson, who was the first female black broadcaster to be employed by the BBC in 1939.
She had an amazing programme called Caribbean Voices, which opened up everyone to the culture of to the West Indies. So she focused on poetry, she was herself a poet, and the writings of the people from the Caribbean. And she brought them into everybody's homes and on the screens in England and in the UK. So it was a significant step and a very welcome one. She was a very much loved face on the BBC.
From the factual to the fictional. We're now in Southwark, where fans of the 90s drama This Life might recognise this as the flat where the young law graduates made their way in the world of work, sharing their tales, often raucous at times, of love and laughter along the way.
We should all have a rule. Mine is, we don't eat other people's food out of the fridge without asking them first.
Fine.
You'll go.
All right, we don't have to clean out the bath after you've shaved your hairy legs.
A snapshot there of some of the people and places that have shared in the BBC story.
Well, back here at Ingatestone Hall, this Grade 1 listed manor house has been in this family since the 16th century, would you believe? And it does have a link to lots of BBC programmes too. You may not have been here, but chances are you've probably seen it on TV, and perhaps in programmes like the period drama Bleak House, or even the Horrible History series, or maybe even Lovejoy. Well, joining me now is Lord Peter, who's lucky enough to live here. Now, talk me through this impressive room and how it's been used for some of the filming that's happened here.
Well, it has been used fairly frequently. I specifically remember when Blue Peter filled it with smoke and laser beams. I can't really remember why, but that's what they did.
You've had so many film crews here. Has anyone ever damaged anything?
Not really, no. It's been a wonderful experience. You have to understand that when you've got a film crew in the house, they do expect more or less carte blanche. But as long as they put everything back where they found it, it's splendid.
And why do you think people do come back time and again to film here? Why is it such a popular filming location?
Well, we like to think it's because we're so welcoming. And that may well be the reason. I hope it is. Actually, funnily enough, although the house is very characterful, it's immediately recognisable. So it often doesn't fit in with when they're looking for historical dramas. They often look for a house which is anonymous. So I think we lose out a bit there. But nevertheless, it's good to get the locations we do get.
And let's just name drop a bit. Talk me through some of your favourite memories of the people who've come here.
Well, I think I always go back to Lovejoy, because that was the first one. So there were all the regulars from Lovejoy and plus a few guest stars as well. But since then we've had an array of stuff. Simon Russell Beale came and did his sacred music thing here. We had Giles Corran and Sue Perkins doing their programme about historical food. The list goes on, really.
Lord Peter, thank you. Well, if you'd like to find out how this building fits into the BBC story, well, you can come and see it yourself. It is open to the public between Easter and September.
Alison, thank you very much. Well, you can find out more about the BBC's 100-year history, as well as take a look at those iconic broadcast locations on the interactive map on the BBC News online website. OK, with that, let's get a check on the weather. Here's Kate Kinsella. Kate.
Thanks very much, Victoria. Good evening. Well, the weather 100 years ago was a little bit chillier than it was today. It really was rather warm. 18.7 Celsius we had earlier at Northolt. Now, this was the sunrise this morning. It was quite misty and murky, and a few of our weather watchers posted up some of these. A very rare fog bow. It only appears for a few minutes, and it reacts a little bit differently to the sunlight than a rainbow. The water droplets within it in the mist and fog are much smaller, so therefore we get this white effect. But that lifted and we had lots of sunshine around today. You see high pressure to the north UK just tries to extend south, just fending off these fronts coming in. And all this yellow and orange, that temperature has been warm and it's set to stay mild, much milder tonight than it was last night. Largely dry and clear, but we will see a bit more cloud. The wind just starts to strengthen. Might just get 1 or 2 showers further west. If you do, you might just get a rumble of thunder, but temperatures much warmer than last night, between 11 and 13 Celsius. So for tomorrow morning, not much mist and fog around. That's all because the wind has been lifting everything out of the way, but it is looking largely dry tomorrow. Those fronts still in the west, still could get a rogue shower. Again, probably more likely to be west than east, but some sunny spells, and temperatures again, despite that easterly breeze, they are going to feel warm at 18 Celsius. Now that high pressure just starts to drift away as we head overnight into Thursday, and that's going to allow these fronts to move in, and that's when the weather turns a little more unsettled. Breezy, but the air coming up from the south, so it is still going to be quite warm, but we could get these showers overnight into Thursday morning. Rumbles of thunder potentially, but they will gradually start to clear to a brighter afternoon on Thursday with some sunshine, and temperatures on Thursday again still going to feel rather warm, looking at a maximum of 19 Celsius. Now it is going to stay quite unsettled. It is, however, autumn, despite it feeling a little summery today. We'll see some showers, outbreaks of rain from time to time, but plenty of dry weather, and look at the temperatures. They're staying in the mid to the high teens Celsius, so above average for the time of year. Victoria.
And I'm very pleased to hear that, Kate. Thank you very much indeed. OK, that's about it from me and the rest of the team in here, our new home in Broadcasting House. Do head over to our website, though, to find out, amongst other things, why a shopping centre in one of the busiest stations in London is nearly deserted. But for now, from all of us here on the team, whatever you're doing, do enjoy your evening, and we'll see you at 10:30. Bye for now.